Hello everyone, welcome back yet again. In case you're wondering, today is going to be a little bit of a combo because I only have a couple of stories so far, and unless something interesting comes up, I doubt there's going to be any real burst of stories for the day. So this is going to be mostly a rant day, but I do have two stories to share. First one of those is about ISPs because I can't get away from them. This time, though, it's also about the chairman of the FCC, who is ironically also a former lobbyist for the cable companies. And he keeps making suggestions in public that sounds like he actually wants to do something to make the ISP situation in our country better. However, he's taken not that much action so far. His latest thing that he's on about is about increasing the minimum standard for a broadband connection to get funding through what's called the Universal Services Fund, which is actually something that started out for putting phone service in areas that weren't very profitable for businesses. We basically handed them bags of cash at the federal level so they would do that, even if they might not necessarily make a heck of a lot of money on those locations. Recently, though, they've been gearing this a little bit differently. They've been sending that money to internet service providers who actually want to, or at least are willing to, follow some certain minimum standards. Part of that minimum standard currently is at least a 4 meg or megabit per second download rate on a broadband connection that they offer. They don't necessarily do 4 megs a second in a lot of areas. I know that my neighbors who have DSL do not get 4 meg service. They get 1.5 and roughly 1 meg up. It's actually 756K, I think. I'm doing this off the top of my head, so my math might be slightly off. I think it's 756K. 700. Anyways, the exact amount of up doesn't really matter so much for what their connection is, but the FCC chairman wants to mandate that instead of a 4 meg download, they want a 10 meg download, which would more than double the minimum standard to get this sort of funding. The ISPs have, done their usual, oh my god, this will kill our industry thing. Of course, it won't kill their industry. This is free money from the government, and they can refuse to take it if they want to. In fact, AT&T did 1 year because they didn't want to have to meet the requirements to take the money. But, yeah. Now that they have started to take that money, they don't want to have to change up the minimum. And it's not even, up for a vote in the FCC right now. It's just what the chairman of the FCC has stated he would like to see done. So it may or may not even happen, but there's already a fight over it. A lot of them use numbers from places like YouTube and Netflix to come up with how much bandwidth is a minimum that we need. However, the reality is a little bit different, since I know a lot of us do not actually get on a regular basis the rated speeds. I know in my own personal experience, it is quite easy for me to have really bad download speeds to places that shouldn't be giving me bad download speeds. Places like YouTube. I don't really Netflix very often, but YouTube, Hulu, because I tried to watch some stuff on Hulu, and I can easily have a horrendously bad connection with almost no data, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, I know I will, on a 20 meg download connection. Of course, that's the rated maximum of my connection, not actually like a definite, this is how much bandwidth you have. And I would love to see them have to have a minimum that they enforced. Like, you cannot go under this amount of bandwidth available to a particular customer at any given time. I don't think they'll ever try to do that. It's feasibly possible. I mean, it does not take much to meet a low minimum, like 2 megs a second, for instance. 2 megs a second would basically guarantee us a at least standard definition video stream, and it should not be that hard to do. The problem is that the ISPs oversell way beyond what their bandwidth actually is, and that means that we can easily be oversold to the point where they couldn't even guarantee me 1 meg a second. Of course, they can't oversell every market. Sometimes the minimum connection they can put in is above the oversell rate, and that used to be the case where I live. However, with Verizon DSL as the only competitor to Time Warner in my area, and Time Warner's service being almost 20 times faster than Verizon's DSL offering, and the difference in price is a whole $5 a month, very few people tend to use Verizon. They would rather go with Time Warner, and that means they have a couple thousand people probably in my town alone that all use the same connection, and I seriously doubt that currently it is anywhere near as good a connection to their next major routing point as it should be to actually support us. Which is why my connection just randomly chooses to drop out at times. I guess in a way it's lucky that my upload bandwidth is so damn horrible, because with my upload bandwidth being so horrible, there's not really much lower it can go. It does actually still go down at times, but that at least is usually not nearly as oversold, and therefore that at least usually is about as effective as they claim. Not that that helps me when it's a whole 1 megabit per second, but that's the way it is. Okay, now the other piece of news I was going to cover, I will do really quickly. One of the IT directors, I believe it is, for one of the big Wall Street firms got indicted for insider trading. And this is the thing that I find funny about this. You know, when we hear about insider trading cases, we usually hear like hundreds of thousands of dollars, really massive numbers, actually. Millions is often a good starting point for most of those cases. This guy barely got away with any money. I don't remember off the top of my head how much. I remember the first number was a 3, and I'm pretty sure it's either 30,000 or 300,000. But in the scale of things, neither of those is all that much. When they got to pay the guy probably about $100,000 or $150,000 a year in the first place, it's barely twice what he'd earned in a single year, and is way below other people that have done much more massive ones. But apparently, his biggest problem was that he didn't actually have enough money to get better protected against such things, and to do a better job of hiding what he was doing. He made it a little too easy to catch him, and now he's going to be probably locked away for a long time. His bond is way higher than the amount that he stole, or, well, it's not really theft. Insider trading is just using information that you learn about to make more money and surer money selling stocks and bonds and other financial trades like that. The reason this is more of a bigger issue is at the same time you learn that our senators and congressmen and women at a national level, it's not a stop, it's a yield. It's not a stop, it's a yield. God. Alright, anyways. As I was going to say, our congressmen and women and our senators have been doing effectively insider trading for a long time. Their placement lets them often know about fairly big changes to the landscape for companies, and they can use this information legally to perform insider trading. Or at least they claim it's perfectly legal for them to do that. Obviously, there are people who don't believe that line that it's legal because it's them doing it, and they're not directly involved in the companies. I forget off the top of my head the exact argument they used, but it was silly. It really was. Basically, they argued that because they're part of the government, it doesn't help them as much as people suggest, and so they didn't really make as much insider trading money as people claim. And come on, you gotta know that's a lie. There's no way that is even a thing. I just can't put that into words even, how wrong I think that is. But that is actually the end of my news items. I will not go on talking more about the weird behavior of our government at the moment. I had a couple of ideas for what I do afterwards, but what I think I'm going to go with is talk about a game that I have been playing. I got into the closed beta for a game called Archeage, or Archeage, or however you exactly want to pronounce it. Quite a while ago now. It was actually middle of summer, maybe, when they started to do closed beta tests, which was a while ago now. Just recently, though, it passed through its open beta, which was only like 4 days long, maybe 5. And at that point, it went into Head Start, let's see, last Friday, if I remember correctly. Head Start ended on Monday night, and the servers went officially live, fully live, on Tuesday. And I've been hanging a lot of that. I was in Head Start because I actually was crazy enough to put down money on it. I'd played closed beta already at that point, and I liked the feel of the game. It reminded me a lot of Lineage 2, which is a rather old game now, but I've beta tested a large number of massively multiplayer online games of a variety of types, several of which were actually even alpha testing. I remember quite vividly a few, like, let's see, I'm trying to remember exactly the name. Something 6, which was a Sega-made game for the PC, which was weird at the time because they didn't usually do PC games. It was... I'm trying to think how best to describe it. Probably the best way to describe it is as sort of like a strategy action game. You had a first-person view, but you built up your own little, like, base would probably be a good way to put that. And from that base, you could then expand out and do PvP against other players. I want to say they were planning to add environmental content, but 10.6 is the name of it. It didn't get out of beta or alpha. It had very bad graphics, which they kept saying that would be improved before it went into beta, and I keep wanting to call it beta because of that, but yeah, that was pretty much a failure. It never became a released game and never went to beta, but I still remember that horrible game. The concept was good, the execution was just bad. And at the time, Sega was not known for making games on the PC. In fact, I'm hard-pressed to remember Sega ever making games on the PC. I know someone will point out somewhere where they have, but I just can't really remember any off the top of my head besides that one. Which is probably why it went away. There were some other bad ones. EA made space action, massively multiplayer online game with some RPG elements, but it was kind of like what we're sort of seeing in the resurgence of the big space shooters. I don't think I need to even mention which ones are coming out. Most people that care already know. But we told them for a long time in beta that their game blew. It was horrible. It sucked. It didn't really do anything that they said it was supposed to do. And they ignored us, and they launched the game, and the game servers couldn't even stay up the first week. And even after that, they didn't really fix the game itself, and the gameplay sucked, so no one stayed. The game lasted, I don't even think 6 months. I didn't play into launch, because that was a train wreck, and they had completely ignored their beta testers. Which is normal, as strange as that sounds. Companies tend to have their own opinion of how the gameplay should be, and routinely ignore well thought out and well presented arguments that the gameplay doesn't actually do what they say it's supposed to do. A little bit of that went into Archeage too, because I've gotten off the subject and started talking about bad RPGs, well, bad MMORPGs. And, well, they're not even really MMORPGs, just MMOs, period. But Archeage, part of the game is all built around crafting. The whole later part of the game, mostly, is best thought of as a crafting and PvP game. That the environmental focus is gone once you reach the level cap, basically. So the end game is all about trading, crafting, and PvP, which is why it reminds me of Lineage, a game I did play a lot. It had a strong crafting focus, but it was almost impossible to ever craft anything because basically you had to collect random drops from monsters with really, really low drop rates. I'm talking about thousandths and millionths of a percent. You could literally spend days farming an area to get one hopeful drop. I remember that game quite a bit. Only the biggest guilds were actually managing to collect enough materials to ever craft any of the late game stuff. And that craftable late game stuff demolished everything else in the game when the game was launched in the US. So those big guilds suddenly had a huge advantage. Other guilds couldn't really do diddly against them, and it became a big issue. I wasn't in one of the top guilds. We weren't bad, but we weren't hugely good either. And that was a problem, because I was one of the highest level players on the server for a very long time. In fact, I think I came very close to the level cap, if not to the level cap. I had way passed the rest of my guild because I've been playing these so long. I can level up a character really quick if I want to, and I don't necessarily need to play 24/7 like some people do to do that. For me, it's all about playing smarter and not playing longer. There's a lot of games that I've done that in. In fact, I can't remember all of them anymore, because some of them I literally burnt myself out of. But getting back to Archeage, land is needed to do crafting. You can do it without that, but it becomes monumentally harder because some things just really aren't available. I mean, you can get those from other players, obviously, but only landowners can make those goods. So there's not a lot of incentive for a landowner to sell cheaply. They can pretty much name their price on those goods, and unless you happen to also own a farm, there's not much you can do about it. So there was a huge land rush during Head Start. It was really hard to find something. It actually took me a few hours to get in because there were huge queues also during Head Start. And since I'm on the East Coast and these games launch on the West Coast, the hours aren't as convenient for me as it is for the company doing these launches. They tend to launch stuff at like 10 a.m. on the West Coast, which for me is 1 in the afternoon. And I should probably just cut things here, because I am almost in, and then I'll have to stop anyways. But I will talk more about Archeage when I get back. I'm pretty sure I will, at least. I had some other ideas planned as well, but since I haven't actually finished all the stuff I was going to say about Archeage, I think I will just cut it there. In fact, I may give everybody a really long episode and piece these all together. And the space I wanted goes away because the person in front of me wants to play around. Now you get to see the lovely game of me trying to find a parking spot. As people walk randomly in front of me. One way, the other way. Alright. Couldn't get close, but I got it. There we go, not my usual spot, but it is a spot. So, there we go. I will see everyone later. Have fun.